Hello, welcome to the Partners and Imprint panel at San Diego Comic-Con 2021. I'm Brendan Columbus, big fan of heavy metal, which is good because I work there. I have Savage Circus going monthly and the bi-weekly podcast, Heavy Metal the Podcast, which I host with Leah Palmieri, my great co-host. And with us, we got Blake. How you doing?
Hi there.
Very good. We got Gideon, Bob, and Denton as well. And these are all imprint authors, producers, and artists. So, Blake, first, we'll start with you. We got the big news with Arena Mode.
Yes. I'm so excited.
I'm more excited. So now it is a trilogy of books, right?
Right. So for anybody that doesn't know, so back in March, we announced that my Arena Mode novels were going to be adapted into a television series with heavy metal. So now we're revealing also that they are going to be with the imprint to be re-released as all the books. So I'm so excited. I think in time for Christmas, they'll be coming out first with Arena Mode, and the date is set for mid-November. It'll be distributed, like you said, here with Simon & Schuster and going into Barnes & Noble. And it's going to be a special edition for this novel, which has never been in print before, with a brand new cover. So I'm very excited.
But it was what was the most sci-fi kickstarted ever? But for a book?
Yeah, it did really, really well. So these books, I originally wrote Arena Mode, and it was released on Kickstarter back in 2013. Then the sequel is called Assault or Attrition, and it came out in 2014. And the final book is Final Empire, which came out in 2015. So Arena Mode was actually nominated for a British Science Fiction Award back in 2013, and it's also a part of the high school curriculum in the state of Florida.
Wait, in Florida, kids have to read Arena Mode?
Yes, they do, and it's so fun.
That's almost shocking there. I'm shocked.
I know.
Half the class will read it, the other can't read yet. And my relatives are from Florida. So, Gideon, we have WhatZit, which is maybe the craziest synopsis I've ever heard.
That's... Yeah, it might be. It might be.
It's aliens. Aliens are viewing Earth through pimples?
Yep, through the pimples of human teenagers. Yeah, I woke up one morning with that idea in my head, and I mentioned it to a few people, and their reaction was so viscerally negative that I thought, well, it's pretty good then. If it gets
people hate it that much.
If it grosses people out that much, it's worth making a graphic novel about it.
And then you brought this to Heavy Metal fully completed, or did you work on it with them?
I self-published the first 4 issues of it, starting about 10 years ago. So I basically showed them those 4 issues, and they were like, for some reason they wanted to put it out. They wanted to put it out as one book. And so that gave me the chance to go back and do some relatively drastic editing, just because I had done the issues like one after the other with larger and larger time periods in between, because I was working on other stuff too. And so it was a great opportunity to like just make it a better story, and also to with more of an eye towards book 2 and then eventually book 3. So book 2 will come out next year. I'm working on that right now.
And you write and illustrate? You and Bob both do, actually. So you have total control over what's in the comic.
Yeah. It's really something. I'm actually working with a co-writer on book 2 because I dug just a huge hole for myself. The story just got more and more complicated, and I realized that I needed an extra brain. And I was lucky enough to find Oliver Irving, who's made a couple of movies, and to sort of look at it from, a scriptwriter's perspective. And I think that was really helpful.
Would you ever push it into TV or film?
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
I think that's what Oliver would like to do, or why I can't imagine why else he would be wasting so much of his time helping me out with this. But yeah, I think it would be, I would love to see it as a half CG, half live action kind of thing.
Yeah, after looking at it, it would be one of the most crazy looking movies ever made. It was just even the cover with the oil. But Bob, you're on your second printing, right, of Dotty's Inferno?
Yeah, that's nice.
It's selling like hotcakes.
So I'm led to believe. Yeah, that's great.
Have you liked working with heavy metal? So you brought for your second printing, there's going to be a couple new stories, a couple new pages, right?
Yeah, I have a long history of tormenting anyone who's faithful to my work, in that every new printing I go back in and rejigger stuff. So there is no such thing as a definitive edition of anything. It's only finite and finished until the next time. So so I had a chance to go back in and do a lot of rejiggering for this second printing and add a new story. And I've been very fortunate over the years to have extremely kind and generous, talented friends who contribute, pinups. It's a little strange to call them pinups. I'm sure nobody's carving up their books, although I encourage them to buy 2 copies, so you do that. There's great pinups and a new one by a really talented filmmaker that I'm a big fan of. He will be the new pinup in this, a guy named Adam Brooks, who's one of the Astron 6 guys, the guys that made Manborg and The Editor and so forth, but he's also a really gifted artist. So, yeah, it's very cool.
Will you go back and change dialogue from your initial issues?
No, I didn't change. Well, I completely relettered the book, but I didn't change a word of it. I just changed how the words look. So
okay, got it. So the story remains intact, but we got a little cleaner letters on there.
Yeah. Yep.
Perfect. And then we have Denton too, which, by the way, Modern Frankenstein's going. Everyone's loving it. You have 3 comics going right now. You wrote Chasing the Dragon. You have Modern Frankenstein through Magma Comics, and Intrusion is your next one, correct?
Yeah. We got Intrusion that's coming up in September. That one's by Ethan Sachs and Marco Lorenzana. We want to kind of experiment with the form, so we're doing a flip book, and you get the story from this Acadian family that was in Canada that was kicked out, and they went to the bayou in Louisiana. This is late 19th century, and they run into a family of creatures, and you get the story from both families' point of view, and then they both meet in the middle of the flip book. So it's a pretty cool idea. That's cool. I jumped at publishing that.
And it was based on a real urban legend, right? The Grunch?
Yeah, that's what Ethan's research turned up, and he's reached out to some museums and the Times-Picayune down in New Orleans to do a lot of research. He's got a journalistic background, so he really digs in deep and finds some really cool stuff that really makes the story feel real and puts you right there with it.
Yeah, the bio could be the scariest place on Earth with a monster out there. The Grunch.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I would like to be in the swamps. Well, I like everyone here brought something already done to heavy metal, right? So, was there any censorship on heavy metal's part? Did anyone get cut down? Did you have to change anything? Blake?
No, they've been very open to, wanting to expand the original content and make it more of a deluxe edition, which I was on board for because I love that. I love that, all the people even who read it before, if they want to pick it up again, they're going to get new content, see things they didn't see before, new artwork. We're going to make it really kind of more of a collector's edition.
And you just finished Synapse too, right?
Yes, so I have a ongoing universe that we started with heavy metal called Synapse, and so it's like a cyberpunk style series of kind of like a dystopian future that follows the Hexenhaus Corporation. And the original issue focused on Annika, and she is seeking redemption for her brother. And then in the second installment, we circled around a villain named the Corruption, which was really fun to get into. And so the series was also spun off into like a side story with the Wonderworks audio.
I was going to bring that up.
podcast.
You're in like every media. You have a podcast, a comic, a TV show now, a book.
Yeah, so the Wonderworks thing was really fun to do and listen to. They added all of this really cool sound effects and
They
everything.
do a great job, yeah.
Yeah, it was so, I've never heard anything like it, so that was really fun. But right now, I'm kind of focusing on a couple of other projects with heavy metal, and then I'll get back to the Synapse universe.
Oh, well, I cannot wait. And one thing I was very excited to ask, too. Gideon and Bob, did you guys ever work together at Mad Magazine? One of my favorite comics of all time.
Well, I owe my shot at being in Mad to Bob, who
Really?
he put my work in front of Bill Morrison, who was in charge there for a gloriously, well, not gloriously brief, but a briefly glorious period of time. And and that was a dream come true. I got to contribute to 7 or 8 issues and brought the whole thing down around me, I guess. But yeah, it was awesome. The highlight for me was getting to do the Avengers Endgame parody, which was, I never worked as hard on anything in my life and was never as happy as doing that. But Bob and I have yet to actually do something together, but we are talking about it. So
I think that's almost 2 meetings of the minds we're not ready for.
Well, as a writer, artist, there's only so many hours in the day to be able to do every graphic novel you want to do. But since I'm an artist, I'm also really particular about what the art looks like. And there's just a handful of people who I think would be harmonious with the kind of stuff that I write. And Gideon's at the top of my list. So I'm hoping sometime in the not too distant future we'll actually manage to do a book together, because I think that would be a very complementary working relationship. Fingers crossed.
Well, that'd be amazing, yeah. And Denton.
Yeah.
So Chasing the Dragon is now on issue, what is it, issue 5?
It's a 5-issue series. Right now, as it stands, I guess the 4th issue will be out. I believe that I can't remember what day's Comic-Con is this year, since we're recording a little early. But the 4th issue should be out by then. 5th issue shortly after, so we'll be wrapping up the storyline. And that one's kind of been a passion project for me. Kind of a personal story about basically kind of a parallel to the opioid crisis that we're undergoing now in America,
but with dragon blood. I love the concept. It's really good.
Yeah, so you got to have a cool, high concept to get people enticed to read a sad story about the devastation of drug use. But there's also plenty of sword and sorcery to keep you entertained. So it's not super preachy or anything like that.
And you did knock it out of the park with the title, Chasing the Dragon.
Yeah, it went under a different title for the longest time, and then that one kind of came to
Bubbled
me.
up.
That it was there all the time, and just had to grab it. But the artist on that is Minton 3, and he's just a phenomenal painter. So it's very gritty and grimy, dark fantasy. So it fits the subject matter perfectly.
Yeah, and your art in that book is insane, right? It was one of the best arts I've seen. Do you have any problems? Well, with Savage Circus, in mine, there was a little loss in translation. It's a weird relationship between writer and artist, because sometimes what you're trying to get across, they don't fully grasp. Did you have a good working relationship with him?
Yeah. We would have calls weekly at least, and then like whenever he had a question, he'd just call me up. He's like, I don't get this part of the script. I worked on thumbnail layouts with him as well. Yeah. So we worked really closely on it. And we're not lucky like Bob and Gideon.
I was going to say I would ask them the same question, but
right,
I hope you guys work well with your artist.
Only sometimes.
Sometimes. And editors. I worked with Bob briefly. I was editing Garbage Pail Kids.
That's right.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and he did a script for me. Couldn't get him to do the art. I think he was busy on couple other books, but
Yeah, John
I was always,
Cebollero did the art.
who was that?
John Cebollero.
That's right, right. Yeah, I had a lot of great people on that book, and Bob was one of them. I've been a fan for years. Minimum Wage was the book that got me hooked on Bob's work, and he wasn't lying. I've got about 3 different versions of Minimum Wage now, so
He just keeps
waiting for the
redoing
next
it.
one.
Blake, for arena mode, so you changed a little, but I wanted to also talk about the Omega artifact, right? Is this the new one? You wrote it. Is this your first? You wrote it as a movie script first, or no?
So Omega Artifact, yeah, is part of another universe that I'm writing called the North Valley Grimoire, and this was like a spin-off.
I don't know how you write so much, Blake. It's insane. I went go on your website. You had like 17 books, like 40 comics in production.
Oh boy. Well, I'm trying my best. Some of these things have been written, like I mentioned, 2013, a while ago. But yeah, so my latest universe to explore is the North Valley Grimoire, which has been super fun. I'm really enjoying it. It's a crossover of spies and thrillers with magic. So it's kind of something a little unusual, but it's really fun. And yeah, so I wrote a spin-off story called The Omega Artifact, which has been optioned to be turned into I have a screenplay for it, and we're going to be adapting it, hopefully, into a movie.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Did you adapt from comic to screenplay, right?
No, that one went straight from a novella, like a short story, into a screenplay. And with Arena Mode, it was also from my novel into a screenplay. So
Did you write the screenplay for Arena Mode as well?
I did. I'm getting
That must have been hard.
out.
You must have had to cut out a lot, right?
Well, I'm kind of, we're thinking of it more as a series. So
TV show.
I was able to adapt it a little bit into, what I thought would make a good kind of first episode. And we're taking it from there. But, getting your head kind of wrapped around these different types of writing has been really interesting for me in the past year, because I went comics, and novels, which I was comfortable with. And then, adding screenwriting in has been really fun.
Yeah, you picked up pretty easily?
Yeah, actually, I came to it because a lot of people mention that my novels are very cinematic in tone. When they're reading them, they're like, I felt like I was watching an action sequence or something. So I think I naturally tend to have a lot of action in my novels, which lends itself really well to screenwriting.
Exactly. Then it could cross over well.
Yeah. So that was fun.
I was excited. Did anyone else? I was going to ask Gideon about how the hell did you write these teenagers? Do you have kids, or how did you get in this teenage mind? Because the idea of aliens only watching teenagers they must be hard characters to write.
Well, I do have a son who's going to be 13 in a couple of weeks, and that's getting increasingly complicated and challenging, but also fun. Before WhatZit, the only comics I've made were autobiographical, sort of in the Crumb Picard kind of realm. And when I had the idea for WhatZit, I had it was really kind of a struggle at first, because I was like, I don't really think of myself as a writer.
Yeah.
So I was
artist first, you'd say?
Definitely. I think visually, and I have verbal ideas, but I like these other people here, I wish I could churn out story ideas, but I have a limited number of them. So when I have them,
you gotta work quick.
Yeah, I have to take care of them. But I just went with the adage of write what you know, and so I really channeled my own teenage years. I grew up fish out of water in rural areas, and some of the things that happen to the main character in the book are similar to things that happened to me. I don't think the aliens looking through my zits was part of it. I don't really know, but there were things in there they're definitely informed. I just went with what I remember, and that's why I set the story in the 70s. Was so that I could, so that I had some material to work from. And the other reason I set it in the 70s is I didn't want to deal with the internet or cell phones or any of those things that make storytelling so hard now.
I know. There's no way I could even write for a teenager today. It would be impossible. They talk completely different.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Right?
what do I know? I'm a middle-aged, I'm a crusty old middle-aged guy. What do I know about?
Exactly.
My
Aliens
son will
look
tell
through
me
my
that I know
zits.
nothing about kids today. So.
Well, Bob, you write mainly autobiographical with Minimum Wage initially, and then you've just moved into this Hellscape, which is a really wild comic that people are really enjoying, though. Was it tough to change into this more fantasy mode?
Not really, because I mean, I always used to focus on more genre-oriented stuff, and Minimum Wage, I mean, which ended up being the thing I did the most of, but in a way that was kind of a digression from more escapist type stuff. So really coming back to, I mean, the thing is, everything is kind of just sort of like what Gideon was just saying. It's all interwoven with autobiographical elements. I think, even something as goofy as Dotty's Inferno, if I really went through it with a fine-tooth comb, I'd probably find little bits here and there that I pulled from real life. They're just probably a little more buried in nonsense. But I think it's just sort of the nature of the beast. I mean, you write what you know, even if it's completely batshit crazy. So
they say art is a confession, so this is Bob's confession to the world.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. It's pretty
I hope
cheerful.
so.
I will say it's kind of weird that the book that I set in hell is by far the most cheerful thing
Most
I've
optimistic.
ever done. Yeah, I think it's a very, I mean, that was the thing. My little running line was that, especially during the pandemic, that hell was my happy place because, it was hell, but hell doesn't always have to be portrayed as just this place of torment. I mean, I see it as just another domain for kind of the mundane turned on its side. That's what I like to do is, a lot of what Dotty's doing in these stories is basically the sort of comic equivalent of fetch quests in a video game. She's set off on these little tasks to do this or that, and she works in an office. I mean, it is the mundane meets the fanciful. Yeah.
Will we see more Dotty soon, do you think?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to do? Are you doing any more new books with Dotty's Inferno?
I hope so. I mean, I've got a lot more stories I want to set. That's the other thing is it's a boundless environment to set stories.
Endless, yeah.
And I've got the backup stories are with these two demons named Ralph and Borax. I'd like to do more stories with them, and then I'd like to kind of keep branching it out. There's all these little side characters who I'd love to give a little bit more time. I mean, to me, basically, it's like a Looney Tunes thing. You've got all of the different characters. Sometimes you mix them together. Sometimes you give them their own little things. So, yeah, I'd love to keep going. I've got plenty more material.
Big universe. Fingerman's Inferno. It'll be perfect. Read in 1,000 years. And Denton, I had to ask about, so you are the editor of Magma Comics, which is an imprint that Heavy Metal works with. How does that come about?
I was pitching Tim Seeley Chasing the Dragon, and he liked it. And then I got an assignment that came down my pike that was called Amber Blake. Jade Lagardère had created this character. It had been published in France and translated to English, and she wanted to continue the story. So they wanted someone to help them develop that and find a new publisher. So I let Tim know about that as well. And it was drawn by Butch Geis, who had also been already working on some Tarna stuff for Heavy Metal magazine. So, just a lot of confluences came together, and Tim introduced me to Matt, and he liked both projects, and he's like, well, these are great. I'm sure you can come up with a lot more, and said, would you just like to have an imprint? So I said, hell yes, and, got to work. And David Irwin, the publisher of Heavy Metal, came up with the imprint name. I was overthinking it, to be honest. Trying to come up with cool things. I played with Earth, played with Heavy Metal. I came up with all sorts of wacky stuff, and he just nailed it with Magma Comics because it's so primal, and it speaks to the creative forces that we're trying to bring to bear. And And like you kind of alluded to earlier, as far as creative freedom, they basically just said, publish whatever you want. We trust you to do what's right, and you know, and they've stayed true to that.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to actually ask you about that, Denton. Because how do you find does most of the work come to you already finished, like a complete project, or do you produce from page one?
It depends from project to project. Like The Keep is a graphic novel adaptation of a book by F. Paul Wilson, who also wrote the adaptation. And I was part of the publication of that like a decade ago, and we're republishing that on the 40th anniversary this year. So that'll be coming out in September.
Is that the Michael Mann based movie?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Michael Mann did make a movie, which Michael Mann has disavowed, and F. Paul
Yeah.
Wilson has disavowed.
They cut
so.
2 hours out of it, which was shocking. I mean, if you watch it now,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's 93 minutes or something.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts, and Paul says that Michael kind of just halfway through just started telling a completely different story, so it kind of went off the rails. But of course, Michael Mann was talented, and later went on to do Miami Vice and all that good stuff.
Well, so the comic is much more a straight up adaptation then.
Exactly. He's going to be doing a new forward for it, and it's fully endorsed by Paul.
First one.
But most projects, I just work with creators that I've had relationships with over, I guess, a little over a decade. I've worked professionally in comics, and just work with them and see what their stories they're itching to tell, and what aligns with the aesthetics of heavy metal and all of that. So
Yeah. Well, I was also wondering, why did you choose heavy metal? Of all, because there's a lot of publishers out there. There must have been something that kind of brought all of us together here.
yeah, I think it goes back to that creative freedom. That's what heavy metal's always stood for. Even back when it was Metal Hurlant and Mobius and his business partner founded it in France, and it's always been about the creators and giving them freedom and pushing the envelope. And after a long time in what I like to call corporate comics, I was looking for a change, and this was the perfect thing for me at the time.
Well, it'd be a tough fit for everyone here, I think. I mean, Gideon, yours, if you try to sell that to Marvel, I think it's such a crazy great idea that I think a lot of these companies don't really have the open minds for some of our stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't be happier with having it at Heavy Metal. I mean, as important to me as the magazine was in my formative years, like the thought of having this crazy thing with them is perfect. And so much of the artwork, especially on the alien side of the story, I'm channeling some weird regurgitated amalgamation of the work I remember seeing when I was a kid in the magazine.
It does look like that, by the way. I was just looking over it.
Yeah,
it has a very, very strong heavy metal feel there.
Yeah. So yeah, it's great. And like you asked earlier, they just have been fine with what they were fine with it as is, and they were fine with the changes that I wanted to make. So really
there doesn't seem to be a lot of censorship here.
No.
Same boat as you, Bob.
Yeah, well, I mean, heavy metal was, for a lot of people I know in comics, Marvel and DC were what set them on their path, and I never really responded to that stuff. But heavy metal debuted when I was in junior high school, and it completely just turned my entire view of comics in a whole other direction, because I'd never seen anything like that work. It was mostly the European contributors, but also Corbin. And for me, it was like, okay, now I understand what I'm going to do with my life. And, my relationship with heavy metal goes back to the late 80s. I've been kind of sporadically in and out of the magazine for decades at this point. So really, there was no other place that I would have even thought would be a good fit for Dotty. It's heavy metal's in its DNA. And so it's a very comfortable fit. And yeah, it's nice to not have to. I mean, if there's any censorship, it's me. I'll self-censor because sometimes I'll just think I don't really want to push that far or this or that.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could probably do anything, or I shudder to think what I could do that would make Matt and everyone else say, no, that's too far. So
It would be it would be something absolutely insane. I mean, I've never, nothing's been edited. But the
all right,
EC
now,
to
now,
heavy
now
metal,
that's a challenge.
Yeah. Now you have to. One of us has to get censored now. The EC to heavy metal progression is actually because even Corbin, you watched how much he changed from his weird science stuff to through heavy metal. I mean, the freedom out here. And I mean, Blake, you're as a non-artist. Maybe you are. Do you draw at all?
No, not at all.
Me neither. I'm not allowed to.
No, I can paint a little bit like watercolors, but I don't do. I'm in awe of all of these artists. You know, I think it's fabulous.
I'm very jealous. Did you feel your writing changing at all working at heavy metal? Being influenced by what's around?
I definitely have that feeling the same as everybody else where, you know, when you're dealing with, I mean, I primarily am talking to Matt, and he's the CEO there, Matt Medney, and he is just so enthusiastic. And if anything, like you said, I feel like I'm the one who's always questioning myself, saying, you know, can I go there? Can I take it to that level? And he's like, go farther, just push the boundary, you know,
Exactly.
like he's so crazy that way. So I never feel that I have to limit what I'm doing. And when you're writing for a bigger title, like, you know, I wrote for, you know, DC, I was writing Catwoman. There are definitely, you know, you have to work within, that's 80 years of whatever, of previous history for that character, right? So it's a big change in my view of writing someone else's character and when you're writing your own characters. So, you know, I'm very careful when I'm writing someone else's character to make sure you take all of that previous content kind of into what you're doing. But with my own characters, I can kind of get a little bit crazier maybe and go into those other areas. And heavy metal has been wonderful with pushing those boundaries.
Oh yeah, we all saw the Batman controversy. I think, what he's not allowed to do in the comics, but that would never happen at heavy metal.
No,
Did you see that they cut out? Batman's not allowed to. Well, we'll see. Gideon. I think we're wrapping up, guys. What can we expect from you in the future at heavy metal and beyond?
I'm working on a short story for an upcoming issue of the magazine of heavy metal with Josh Skye, who interviewed me for the last issue. And it's a crazy story that's super fun to draw. I have a book out that's much more suited for younger readers. It's volume 1 of Mega Ghost. It's published by Albatross Funny Books, which is Eric Powell's imprint.
Oh, yeah.
And it's written by Gabe Soria. I'm really proud of that book. And I just drew the first issue of a new book that Eric Powell is writing.
Awesome. I love Powell.
That comes out soon, I think, like in the next month or two. It's called Lester of the Lesser Gods, and it's freaking hilarious. It was super fun to draw, just like stupid, silly violence. And I hope we get to make more issues of it. It's a one-shot for now, but hopefully it'll be a series.
Oh, that sounds right up my alley. Denton, what do you got going?
WhatZit, that's it.
I can't wait. I mean, WhatZit, of course. Denton, what do you have coming up for us?
I think I've plugged pretty much everything from Magma. Amber Blake Operation Dragonfly is out this month. Really excited about that one. It's a big passion project for Jade, and it was really cool to be able to get the whole team back together and get Butch Geis on art and Dan Brown on colors. And I've also been editing a lot of really cool books for the Opus imprint. That's run by Lexi Leon. Blake, I know, is writing at least one of those that we can talk about right now. But
Blake, another project?
Yes.
Another
a really
project.
Cool one. This was so cool.
Yeah.
We got to work with Evanescence, which is one of my favorite bands like ever when I was growing up.
No way.
So, yeah, it was really fun. And
that's fun.
yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah. So Evanescence, we're doing one with Joe Satriani. Disturbed is
I
a
love
big one
Satriani.
coming out. So yeah, a lot of really cool bands have signed up, and a lot more to come. So been excited working on
Exciting.
those.
I love the musicians getting in here. How about you,
Yeah.
Bob? What do we got coming? I know it's going to be something wild.
Well, I mean, in addition to the comics, I also write novels, and Heavy Metal will be releasing a new, significantly revised edition of my novel Pariah,
Oh, perfect.
with a really cool new cover by Glenn Fabry, the amazing Glenn Fabry. But that was a really great opportunity to go back in. You know, you write books, you have years to think about what you might have done better or done differently, and so here we are once again, had an opportunity to go in and completely rework the novel. I think it's a significant improvement. The
How
previous
much would you say
edition,
you changed?
probably 35 to 40%.
Oh,
It's
wow.
it's quite a
That's like a
bit.
brand new book.
So yeah, it's the tone of it is similar but not the same, and there's some plot changes and what have you. And there will be. I'm excited to hear what Blake said about the fully produced audiobook because they're going to be doing one of those for Pariah as well. And
Oh,
of
they do
course,
a hell of a job. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
If
very
Madman
curious
is,
to hear. Very
yeah.
curious to hear how that comes across. But I think it'll be fun. I love audiobooks because they keep me company while I'm drawing. So that'll be
You could do both at once?
listening. Yes, writing.
Yeah.
No, if I'm
Yeah,
writing, I
right. No,
need
no.
total silence. But when I'm drawing, I can usually slip into neutral and just kind of be entertained while I'm working, which is great.
Perfect. Well, you can listen to your own book soon then. And
Yeah,
Blake,
I hope.
we have an hour for your upcoming project.
You're funny. But yeah, no, the only thing I hadn't got a chance to mention was
Yeah.
this really cool project with Incendium, which is linked off of Heavy Metal. So we're producing these really neat books that are, wrapped around kind of like new music that's dropping from all of these incredible bands. So Evanescence just came out with their new album, and I did one of the stories, which was called based on their song "Wasted on You," and I
Oh,
got
yeah.
to work with Abigail Larson, who is an incredible artist, and she did the interiors. So it's really exciting to see that come out. And I'm doing another story for another song, and with another band as well, but I don't think I can
It's a
talk
top
about that one
secret?
yet. Yeah.
I wanted to know. Well, that's all very exciting. Well, thank you guys all for coming on. It was a great talking to everyone, and I
Thank
hope
you.
everyone has an amazing San Diego Comic Con virtually.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Brandon.
guys.